happy 4th of July, and welcome to a very special episode of the Pathfinder Report. My name is Joel Gruey, and I'll be running point as your host today. In our last episode, I promised part 2 of our celebration of America, and although we normally launch stuff on July 1st, I decided that it couldn't be better than to release this episode on the 250th birthday of America. Today, we're going to be talking about what we love about America here at Project Pathfinder. And I decided to bring in, well, actually most of the team that works here with me to help me with that. So, to that end, one of the ideas that is often part of the national dialogue is that the next generation of Americans is not proud of America, or that they don't really love their country. Thankfully, that's not true, and I want to give you some reasons why young Americans, younger than me at least, do love their country and what they love about America. And the reasons reach, to borrow an old phrase, from sea to shining sea. All right, with me is Olivia Boyer. She is another one of our summer interns. She's helping us put together a bunch of our work as we're setting up the office, not to mention getting ready for iGovern's first camp under Project Pathfinder. Olivia, thank you for joining us on the Pathfinder Report.
Happy to be here.
Excellent. All right. So my question for Olivia is this. What is one thing about America that you think that most people your age, take for granted?
I would say the free market. I'm not going to lie. I've noticed a lot of people, especially my generation, believe that a socialist or communist America would be a lot better. Just to name an example would be Young Democratic Socialists of America, or YDSA. And being involved with college politics, I haven't directly interacted with them, but I have a lot of friends who do. And they just believe that America would be so much better as a socialist or communist state. And having thought about it a lot, it really wouldn't be. Like, we are so privileged to be able to choose what we consume, and be able to choose what quality of products we want to have. And honestly, a socialist America would not have Louis Vuitton level quality. It would have machine level quality, and I think more people need to realize that.
I think it's funny because you see them doing that while they're recording themselves on an iPhone and driving away in a Tesla, and I'm like, okay, well, someone hasn't thought this through all the way. All right, next question. One of the fundamental aspects of America is the idea of religious liberty. It's baked into our founding in a way that actually almost isn't anywhere else on the planet. Does that feel real to you on a day-to-day basis, or is that more of like an abstract concept?
It feels very real to me day to day. I've lived in a Muslim country before, and so I totally understand the necessity to have religious liberty. Thankfully, I lived in a Muslim country where religious liberty was slightly more than other Muslim countries. So my parents and I could go to church, or we could wear crosses in public and not be worried about death. But I do certainly think that in America, it's so important that we have religious liberty. Like, I walk around, I wear a cross, I sometimes wear a Magen David, and like, it never has been a problem for me, and I'm so thankful that America has that.
That is an awesome thing, and something I think more people need a practical example of. I think sometimes that becomes too abstract for most, but definitely not for you. All right, well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, with me is Dustin Tenney. He's actually one of our summer interns. He's helping us build one of our programs called iGovern. Dustin, welcome to the report.
It's good to be here.
Glad to have you. All right, so question for you. What is one thing about America that you think most people your age take for granted?
Well, I would say a lot of people my age, and especially people that are older, take for granted is the brave men and women who put on the U.S. military uniform to defend our liberty from invaders and domestically as well, especially with the law enforcement as well. I think a lot of people take for granted that many of these servicemen had lives before they made the decision to put on the uniform to serve in the U.S. military and in the United States police force to protect us.
Something we should definitely be grateful for.
Yeah.
Very true. All right, next question. America is known as the land of opportunity. We talk about the American dream, whether it's still a real thing, etc. So my question to you is this. Is the American dream still a real thing? And if so, what does that look like for you growing up today?
Well, I would say the American dream is not just a dream, but essentially still a reality for those who are willing to overcome obstacles, who are willing to take risks and work hard. And I would say, for me personally, having the ability to choose my career in life, and if I wish to essentially raise a family and settle down in any area of my choosing. But,
it seems like on social media today, there's a lot of people that talk that the American dream is not possible. It's not that they it's not that they haven't achieved it, it's that they don't think it's actually possible to achieve it. You're saying it very much still is if you're willing to work hard. And I agree with you. And I think that's a good thing. All right. Thank you much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, with me now is Sarah Volkman. She is one of our summer interns. She's helping us prepare several of our programs, as well as helping with some of our legislative advocacy that we're working on this summer. We've talked about that on other shows, so we're not going to go into it now. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. This is fun.
Excellent. Glad you're here. And you don't seem terribly nervous, so I think you're doing just fine. All right, let me ask you the first question. If you had to point to one thing that America has given the world that no other country would have, what would you pick?
So I would say limited government with the idea of checks and balances. That's something that's something that is uniquely American that has spread around the world. And that's something that comes from the understanding that the founders had of human nature being flawed, which is a biblical concept that hasn't translated into many other forms of government.
I love that. We actually have an entire program that we run here called I Advocate Westminster that talks about how the American system of government developed that out of the British system and the weaknesses that come with that. So you are singing to my ears a song that we very much love here. All right, I have a different question for you. Do you think America's Christian roots show up in ways people don't always recognize in the U.S.?
I would say yes. And for me, it goes back, besides what I mentioned about limited government, it goes back to the concept of rights. People nowadays have, they have a concept of human rights, but they don't usually know where it comes from. And they often, I think, don't want to think about where it comes from.
It's hard if you don't have a source to think about that.
Yes. So that in the American founding, we have the idea that rights come from God. And that's something that has become deeply ingrained in America, and that has spread and grown. Even though that root has been lost in the perspective of many people, the impact is still there.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think one of the things that I find that runs kind of parallel with what you were just saying is that we have, as Americans, and this has maybe made a little bit of a broader march around the world, but definitely not everywhere, is this idea that people are inherently valuable. Like this idea that there is inherent worth to an individual, that we don't just spend lives like water or casually. Like it's actually a tragedy when someone dies when they're innocent or when there's an accident or when there's a crime, right? But that primarily is rooted in the idea that people have inherent worth and value, and that comes from this idea of people being made in the image of God, that there's a unique dignity in each person, which informs a lot of our other policy decisions as well. All right, Great answer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, thank you.
All right, with me today is Ryan Mushad, who is our newest hire here at Project Pathfinder, and a friend of mine for a while. That being said, he's one of our research staff, and he's helping us with a project right now. I want to start with this question. What is one moment, personal, historical, both, where you felt genuinely proud to be an American?
The big thing that comes to mind is the Dobbs decision. Because growing up, coming into the political world, 18, 19 years old, we were told, it's been the law of the land for 50 years. It's not going anywhere. There's nothing that can be done about it. And then to watch in my own lifetime as we eradicated this 50-year-old horrible Supreme Court ruling was really, really awesome. I'm proud to be a part of a country where even if it takes 50 years to do something, we can still have the process and go through it and still have those debates and come out and have a different point of view from our Supreme Court, convince the court to reverse its ruling from 50 years prior and walk away without the Roe v. Wade.
I remember 10, 15 years ago giving speeches saying that you might be the generation that sees the end of Roe v. Wade. And hopeful that was true. And then it became true. Pretty cool voice. Okay, different question. And you kind of alluded to it a little bit with your discussion of Dobbs and Roe v. Wade and essentially life and medicine and whatnot. America has led the world in both medical research, technology, space exploration, a whole bunch of other stuff. Which of these feels the most significant to you, and why?
I think our medical innovation is what stands out to me the most. Because you hear a lot about how bad the American healthcare system is, how expensive it is, and all sorts of issues. And nobody's going to disagree that there isn't room to improve our healthcare system.
True.
But because of our healthcare system, we've invented more drugs. We've invented more vaccines than any other country. We have saved more lives through medical innovation than most countries combined. And that is very much because our system is set up the way it is, where they are able to profit a lot off of it. When they use those profits, sometimes for good, sometimes for evil, but when they use it for good, it's used to bring in new innovations, new drug treatments, new developments in cancer research.
We've incentivized innovation.
Exactly. So you hear a lot about the bad of the American healthcare system, and I think that's one of the goods that gets swept under the rug far too often.
Oh, it does. I remember when my wife and I, when we had our firstborn, we were getting, the training and all the stuff they go through of like, all right, you're gonna have a baby, and here's what's all the stuff you need to know. And one of the nurses was like, you got to understand, 15, 20 years ago, a bunch of the stuff I just told you wasn't true. We couldn't do this. Now we can get the baby out and mom be safe in 2.5 minutes. If we have to, we can do it. We don't like doing it that way, but we are now able to do that, and that wasn't a thing. Whereas before, it was far more risky and far more dangerous, and we've made huge advances. Even by the time our last child was born, the recovery was multiple factors better and faster because there was incentives built in to say, how do we make this a better experience for people? How do we help them? How do we heal? And that's a great thing that the world collectively benefits from. Cool. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
All right. With me now is Tyler Duncan. Tyler is our camp production specialist, someone who's been a volunteer with the work I've been able to do for the last really long time. He and I have known each other since 2013, and we're still friends, which is always nice to see. Tyler, welcome to the Pathfinder Report.
Awesome. Thanks, Joel. I'm really glad to be here.
Good. Very good. All right. So my opening question for you. What's a moment, personal, historical, both, something like that, where you felt genuinely proud to be an American?
It's not going to be a single moment per se, but there's a quote specifically it's attributed to Winston Churchill, and so I'm going to claim it is by him because, again, he wrote a lot of really good stuff.
He did.
But it is roughly that you can always count on America to do the right thing after they've tried everything else, which, again, doesn't seem like the reason to be the proudest, but I am incredibly proud of my country because we do get to the right thing. And not a lot of other countries can say that. We, time and time again, have been on the right side of history. We go ahead, we're slow on a lot of things. And again, we don't always do it right at first, but we're never satisfied with being in a bad place and staying there.
That's really good. And I'm pretty sure he probably did say it. I was at the Churchill Museum in London year before last, and they had that, to be fair, it's England making this, right? Plastered up on the wall, as well attributed. To be fair, though, I echo the sentiment. I love it. All right, Tyler. Our Declaration of Independence says that we hold these truths to be self-evident, and let me list those off. All men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That most of the world didn't treat these rights as self-evident, right? What does it mean that America built a nation on the claim that those rights are in fact self-evident?
So I think before we get to that, we need to go back just a little bit, or if anything, maybe a little bit forward. But regardless, we as a nation built our thing off of ideals. We knew we were not perfect at first, and yet we continued to strive after it time after time. And just going a little bit later in that paragraph for Declaration of Independence, it talks about the fact that governments derive the powers from the consent of the governed, that any form of government becomes destructive to these ends. It is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute a new government. In so doing, yes, these truths are self-evident, and yet we fail at them time and time and time again, and we realize that we as people will fail. And that's okay, but just because we fail doesn't mean that it is not worth striving after continually and to chase after it because it is what's right.
I think it's really interesting that we built a system of government that had the ability to amend itself, to improve itself, and to adjust itself baked into it right from the get-go, because the recognition that we don't always achieve those ends perfectly, and if your other options are it's a monarchy or a tyranny or something, there's not going to be a change, whereas we built our system with the checks and balances that included the amendment process to be able to try and affect those changes in more productive ways, I guess would be a better way of saying it. That really informs how our government is designed, and it's something legitimately to be proud of. That's true.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Great answer.
Awesome.
All right, with me now is my good friend, Alyssa Cruz. Alyssa has been part of Pathfinder from the very beginning and is our Director of Operations, which basically means that almost everything comes across her desk in one form or the other. Alyssa, welcome to the Pathfinder Report. It's good to have you back.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me, Joel.
Glad to have you. All right. So thank you for letting me strong arm you into this one too. I know we have a ton to get done, but I just have 2 questions, maybe 3. We'll see how this goes. Let me ask you the first one. If you had to point to one thing that America's given the world that no other country could have, what would you pick?
That's a great question. So I think for me, it would be like one of the things that we've given the world is this idea of engaged citizenship. Like for a long time, the government was just kind of this big high level thing that your average citizen really had no way to have any sort of impact with. I mean, like you might get a mob together and protest the king, but that didn't usually end very well, or something along those lines. But in our, with the United States, it started from the beginning. There was this idea of equal representation, and it wasn't perfectly equal in the beginning, but as time has progressed, it's allowed, it's grown to the point where today, average citizen, you do have a say, you do have a voice in your country and what happens, and that's a really important part of the country that we have today.
It's amazing the amount of activism and engagement that the average citizen has in the U.S. government is just from a capacity perspective so much different than the rest of the world, so much higher. And frankly, it's used a lot in ways that are not normally used in other parts of the world, or at least not able to be used the way it is here. And that's really cool. All right. Next question. You grew up, like me, in the most prosperous country in history. Just straight up. There's not really any way to argue it any other way. The U.S. is the most prosperous country in history. What does that actually mean in practical terms for how we live?
That's also a great question. So I have been enjoying all of the World Cup coverage, and particularly all of the people from other countries who have been discovering the amazing thing that is American grocery stores.
Oh my gosh.
Like the fact that we have 15 million types of chips that you can buy, and you have 4 different versions of ketchup, and there's this thing called ranch dressing, which is amazing.
Yes.
But it's something that, like, I think as an American, I haven't done a ton of international travel, but I did a trip to Eastern Europe a number of years ago. And the differences between what's available in their grocery stores and what's available in ours day to day is a pretty big difference. Yeah. And that's something I think that I take for granted as an American, is that I can walk into my grocery store and have multiple options for whatever thing it is that I want to buy this week. Potato chips I'm thinking of because we've got a bunch of barbecues coming up. And
sure,
yeah. Potato chips are a quintessential American thing. But I think that's one of those things that I take for granted as an American, is that I do live in such a wealthy country where I have options about anything I want. If I can't find it in the actual store, I can go online to Amazon or some other place and buy the thing that I want.
It was funny. You and I are on a text chain of planning a 4th of July event, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, for those of you listening to this, we are recording it a couple days before the 4th of July. But I think your brother jumped in the text group and he's like, I'm bringing the potato chips, plural. Implication, a bunch of different types and mini bags.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's just assumed.
Yeah.
And again, when I've traveled overseas, that's not always the option. I remember during COVID when people were like, they don't have all of the options. Not that they don't have food in the stores because they were having the shortages in delivery. It was just they didn't have all the different variants of the food, which I find hilarious that's where the outrage came from. We were just accustomed to a level of prosperity that for much of the planet is not a thing. All right. Just because we have a moment, and I want to ask this to you as well. The First Amendment is a quintessential part of the United States kind of our government, of our understanding of civics and citizenship. But what is one of the things that you think the First Amendment has made possible that most people do not connect back to it?
So, I promise I'm not hungry right now, but this is the first thing that comes to my mind.
Okay.
Yelp reviews.
Reviews.
You can get on Yelp or Google reviews, and you can say, I went to this restaurant and I didn't like Billy Bob's chicken tenders. And you can say that because the First Amendment allows us to be able to express and to do criticism. Now, you can't say, and Billy Bob also, kidnapped my family, because that isn't true. Like, there's some lines that the First Amendment really has, but that's something I think that we take for granted, is that there are many places where you can't be critical. Or if you are, there's very serious consequences. Sure. Whereas in this world, people might be mad at you, or in the United States, people might be mad at you. But
that's about as far as it goes.
But that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah.
So you can say how you feel about something, and that's important.
I think a lot of us don't realize our ability to just say stuff is quintessentially and distinctly American, and very much our First Amendment lived out. And we are just unaccustomed to realizing that is not, in fact, true all around the globe. In some areas, yes, but in some areas, very not.
Well, and related to that, I'll just throw out there too, things like memes that we take for granted. We get on social media and we can see, memes about heaven knows what it is today. But there are very real cases in the UK right now where people are being prosecuted for memes that they put up, or in the EU, because there are actual laws that say you can't do pictures about certain types of meme. You can't do certain types of memes. Speech codes that come with real world consequences of, criminal charges and things like that, for things that, at least for some of the ones I've seen, I'm like, in the United States, that would never be even close to be considered a criminal case. But that's something that is because we have the First Amendment that protects our rights to be able to express ourselves in that manner. So that's, things we take for granted.
I love our country. All right. Thank you much.
Yeah.
All right, Glenn, welcome back to the Pathfinder Report. So glad you're here. I'd give you an intro, but I think at this point, everyone probably knows you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. And we couldn't include Do the 250th without you for this one. Definitely not. All right, so Glenn, question for you. What is one thing about America that you think most people, I was going to say your age, but it's kind of our age, and that's kind of scary, take for granted?
This is a hard one, but I think one of the things we take for granted is just the freedoms that we have. And so we can look at all the freedoms that we have and then go into the point of either neglecting to use them or not even realizing how special it is. Yeah. We have freedom of speech. We have freedom of religion in ways that other countries, you don't have these same freedoms. And it's really easy to take them for granted and to, in some cases, what I see concerning with our age, older, younger as well, just in general, is thinking that these freedoms aren't anywhere near as important as they are, and thinking that we should sacrifice the freedom of religion, sacrifice the freedom of speech, sacrifice freedom to protest.
Freedom of assembly. That was a couple of years ago.
And so there's all of those things where it looks at, let's sacrifice those because we don't realize how important and how foundational those freedoms are.
Good answer. All right. Second question. America has call it complicated history. I think that's both honest and charitable. We definitely have not been perfect. We've failed, let's be honest, to live up to our own ideals. They are aspirational and we work toward them, but we have not hit them perfectly every time. More than once, honestly. And sometimes it's taken quite a bit of work for us to get those ideas kind of worked out in their full. Some of them are still in process, as they ought to be. Why do you think the ideals themselves are worth remembering and, frankly, celebrating this 4th of July?
Our nation was founded on the principles, just to go to the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And those are ideals that we haven't always held up, but they're ones that are worth striving for. And frankly, seeing that and seeing the way it's moved over history is one of the things that makes me proud to be an American. I remember a handful of years ago now where actually, Joel, both of us had an opportunity off of Statuary Hall in the Capitol, which is where the House of Representatives used to meet, is a room where John Quincy Adams actually died. And we got to go in there and see the couch where he died. And one of the unique things with John Quincy Adams was he was president of the United States and then went back to the House of Representatives because he wanted to fight to abolish slavery. He looked at it and said, all men are created equal means all men, and we're failing to uphold that ideal. And he was fighting for it to get to the point of recognizing the true ideal, all men are created equal. It didn't matter on race, and slavery was wrong. And that's one of the things that our founding fathers had, the great ideals that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with these unalienable rights. We didn't always hit those perfectly. We're not perfect today, but we're a country that has that foundation, and we strive to perfect ourselves and to get better and to recognize those rights.
Life and liberty have both been these twin threads that have been driven through America's history as we have imperfectly advanced. And I think it's really worth remembering that sometimes we stumble in that attempt. We've had some notable faceplants, but we've also seen our country pick itself up and go, okay, we're going to try that again and get it right this time and make notable progress, even in the face of some big setbacks at one point or the other. And it's better for it. And that's a beautiful thing. Thank you. I think that is absolutely worth celebrating. I think sometimes we get so bogged down by our not doing it well that we forget to celebrate that we have made progress, and that is worth celebrating. Awesome. Thank you so much. Glad to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Well, that was fun. There were 3 questions that we rotated between asking the different team here. Well, the first one is, of course, what's one thing about America that people our age, your age, take for granted? And the answers vary. But I think a lot of them come down to this idea of freedom and what it means. And I think I could not be more proud as we celebrate our 250th anniversary on this 4th of July of our freedom and more thankful for the gift it is. The next question that I asked people was, if you had to point to one thing that America has given the world that no other country could have, what would you pick? And I think, in a sense, the written form of the idea that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain God-given rights. Okay, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. This idea, written down, limited government, like under written law rather than just what someone wants. That idea proliferated across the globe, and it is a good thing, and I think it's worth celebrating. And then lastly, what's that moment, personal, historical, or both, where you felt genuinely proud to be an American? And I confess, I don't know what my best answer for this is. I've had those moments. Some of them have been pretty amazing. Some of them are living through tragedies and seeing American heroism meet those tragedies. Sometimes it's seeing moments of great achievement. But I think personally for me, it was the first time I was in D.C. and walking in, seeing the statues and seeing the monuments and the history that kind of moves up and down those streets. And a mentor of mine at the time, a congressman who's no longer Congress, but he was giving me the tour at that point. He said, Joel, whenever you show up in this city and the things here don't feel special, they don't generate a sense of awe and a sense of service to an idea bigger than you, and it becomes comfortable or customary, this is your right or duty, you need to go home. This is a place where we come to serve others, and I think that idea of service is a fundamental aspect of what makes America good, that we serve and love other people. Not perfectly, but progressively better each time. And it makes me genuinely proud. So as you head out to your adventures and your festivities tonight, take that moment to thank other people for the good they do, to serve them as you're able as we celebrate our country. Now, that said, thank you for joining us today on this special celebration of America. It's been a pleasure to introduce you to our team. Some of them you know, some of them were probably new to you, and there'll be more as we work our way along. But also get to tell you some of the reasons why we here at Pathfinder love America. If this is your first time listening to us, or hearing about Project Pathfinder, you can head to projectpathfinder.net to find out more. And it's got everything from different programs we offer to different things you can do to engage our content, that sort of thing. You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and of course, at Project Pathfinder HQ on our YouTube channel there. Please feel free to rate, follow, and most importantly, subscribe to get more information as it comes forward from the Pathfinder Report, wherever you are listening to it today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been my pleasure. Have a great day.